Boxing Day, the day after Christmas here in Toronto, is usually one of the laziest days of the year. You're supposed to be recovering from food comas and social exhaustion, shuffling around in pajamas, maybe braving the mall sales if you're insane, or just cleaning up the wreckage. For my girlfriend Melody and me, it was going to be a cleanup day. We live in a semi-detached house in Atobacoke, a quiet, very average suburb. The houses are older, and the narrow shared driveways between them are barely big enough for a single SUV, never mind two cars trying to squeeze by at once. We'd been living next to a guy I'll call Greg for about 2 years. He was the kind of neighbor you nod to and forget. Not friendly, not hostile. Harmless, or so I thought, right up until that Christmas. Things had been tense with him lately. He'd lost his job in November, and since then I'd see him sitting on his porch at odd hours with a drink in his hand. You never picture the guy who borrows your snow shovel as someone who might try to kill you. You just don't. Around 10 a.m. on December 26th, the sky was the flat, steel gray you get in Ontario winters. It was freezing. I needed to run to the hardware store, so I threw on a jacket and boots and stepped out the side door into the shared driveway. The problem was right there in front of me. Because it was just after Christmas, everyone had extra trash, TV boxes, crumpled wrapping paper, plastic packaging. The city has strict rules about where bins can go, but Greg didn't seem to care. His blue recycling bin and big black garbage bin were sitting dead center in the shared lane. There was no way to get my car out without hitting them. I sighed. Through his side door window, I could see the fog of his breath. He was definitely home. I didn't want a confrontation. I just wanted to leave. His bins were overflowing with empty soda cases and liquor bottles, more than I'd ever seen him go through. I grabbed the handle of the black bin to drag it maybe 2 feet to the side, just enough to clear a path. His side door exploded open so hard it slammed against the brick. "Don't touch my stuff," Greg screamed, making me jump and drop the bin. He stood there in the doorway in a dirty t-shirt and boxer shorts, even though it was about -5 degrees. His face was flushed, and the smell of stale whiskey hit me from 10 feet away. It was 10 in the morning and he was already wasted. I told him to calm down, that I was just trying to get my car out because his bins were blocking the lane. He slurred something about putting them there for the truck and told me not to touch his property, accusing me of thinking I was better than him with my fancy new car. The garbage truck wasn't even due until the following day because of the holiday schedule. He had to know that. He wasn't talking about bins. He was looking for a fight. I tried to keep my voice level, told him I wasn't trying to start anything, just moving them a bit so I could back out. I reached for the bin again. This time he didn't yell. He just turned and walked back into his kitchen, leaving the door hanging open. I thought he'd given up. I moved the bins quickly, got into my car and started the engine. Then I remembered Melody needed the car seat moved to the back for her nephew later. I shut off the engine and stepped out to adjust the rear seat. That's when Greg came back out. He wasn't running. He moved with this stiff, deliberate walk, his right hand tucked behind his back under his t-shirt. He stopped about 15 feet away on the icy pavement between our houses. "I told you not to touch it," he said quietly. Then he pulled his hand out. Your brain lags when it sees something that doesn't belong. In a quiet Toronto neighborhood, you might expect a shovel. Maybe, worst case, a bat, not a gun. But there it was, a small black semi-automatic pistol dangling at his side where I could see it. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I would puke. The air felt suddenly thin. "Greg," I managed. I told him to put it away. "Get in the house," he said. "What?" I asked like I hadn't heard him. "Get in your house," he screamed, lifting the gun and pointing it straight at my chest. The black circle of the barrel looked huge. I didn't think. I scrambled backward, tripped over my own feet, and practically fell through my side door. I slammed it shut and fumbled with the deadbolt, my hands shaking so badly I could barely twist the lock. "Melody, call 911, I shouted. She was in the kitchen with a coffee mug, staring at me like I'd lost my mind. "Greg has a gun," I yelled. He pointed a gun at me. "Call the police." Her face went from confused to terrified in a heartbeat. She dropped the mug. It shattered on the tile and grabbed her phone off the counter with clumsy, shaking hands. A loud crack split the air. You feel gunshots more than hear them. The first round hit the brick wall just beside the window, the sound booming through the whole house. We both hit the floor and crawled into the living room, away from the side that faced Greg's place. Outside, he was screaming nonsense, ranting about trash, respect, the government. His voice was slurred and wild. Melody was sobbing into the phone. I could hear the faint, tinny voice of the operator. "My neighbor has a gun. He's shooting at our house," she cried. The operator asked for our address and whether we were in a safe place. Melody told her we were on the living room floor, that we'd heard at least one shot. When asked if we knew the suspect, she explained it was our neighbor Greg, drunk, who'd pulled a gun after an argument about trash cans. A heavy thudding noise echoed through the house as Greg started kicking at our side door. "He's trying to get in," Melody screamed into the phone. The operator told her to stay away from the door and asked if it was locked. "Yes, it's deadbolted," Melody said, voice shaking. Another deafening pop. A round tore through the wood of the door. Back in the living room, I could see splintered wood at the frame where the bullet had passed just above the knob. A thin shaft of daylight pierced through the fresh hole, catching dust in the air. I dragged Melody behind the sofa. We curled up together on the floor, holding on to each other. I kept waiting for the crack of the door giving way, for his footsteps in our kitchen, for him to appear around the corner with that gun. Your mind goes strange in moments like that. I remembered reading somewhere that domestic violence and violent incidents spiked during the holidays. Stress, money problems, family pressure, and alcohol all building up like steam in a closed pot. Greg wasn't furious about trash bins. That was just the trigger. He'd been drowning in something for months, and today was when it finally boiled over. He screamed at us from outside to open the door that he knew we were in there. He kicked again, the frame creaked. Then silence. 30 seconds of absolute nothing. No shouting, no kicking. It was worse than the noise. I wondered if he was reloading, circling to the front to smash a window, or just standing out there listening. Then we heard them. Sirens. Not just one, several, drawing closer. A voice boomed from the street through a megaphone, identifying themselves as police and ordering Greg to drop his weapon. I risked a glance over the sofa and peered through the front window. 3 cruisers screeched to a stop in front of our lawn. Officers spilled out, weapons drawn, taking cover behind their car doors. "He's in the driveway," I shouted, hoping they could hear. Boots pounded on the pavement outside. I heard officers ordering him to show his hands, to get on the ground. A terrible pause followed. I held my breath, bracing for more gunfire. Instead, I heard the metallic clatter of a gun hitting icy concrete. Greg's voice broke into a wail. He sounded small now, pathetic, begging them not to shoot. Commands, a scuffle, the click of handcuffs. Then the voice on the megaphone announced that the suspect was in custody. I slumped against the sofa and looked at Melody. We didn't say anything. We just listened to the police radios crackling outside. When we finally went out, the scene felt unreal. Yellow tape stretched across our shared driveway. Greg sat in the back of a cruiser, head bowed, looking like a tired, broken old man rather than the monster who just tried to shoot us. An officer walked us through the damage. 2 bullet holes in our side door, one lodged in the wood, the other having punched through and buried itself in the kitchen drywall, right at the spot where I usually stand to make coffee. If I'd been there, or if I hadn't moved as fast as I had, I wouldn't be here to tell this. They found a whiskey bottle in Greg's coat pocket. His blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit. Later, we learned that he'd planned to kill himself that morning. The gun hadn't been meant for me, at least not at first. But when I moved his bins, challenged the one bit of control he still felt he had, on a day when everything else in his life had fallen apart, he turned that violence outwards instead. We moved out 3 months later. Even with Greg in prison, facing attempted murder and a laundry list of other charges, we couldn't stay. Every time I stepped through that side door, I saw the gun. Every time I noticed a trash bin slightly out of place, my heart started racing. The holidays are supposed to be peaceful. For some people, they're just a reminder of everything they've lost. Sometimes all it takes is one blocked driveway for a quiet neighbor to become a killer. So if you find yourself in a holiday argument, especially with someone who seems off, walk away. Let the trash bin block the car. It's not worth your life. Before we move on to the next story, if you're new to our channel, hit subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss any of our upcoming scary stories. My name is William, and until last year I lived with my wife, Anukika, in a 2-story house in a nice subdivision just outside Denver. We were the host couple. We loved having people over. Last Christmas was supposed to be our biggest party yet. About 40 people crammed into our living room and kitchen. Family, coworkers, neighbors, and a handful of plus ones we'd never met. The party kicked off around 6 p.m. on Christmas Day. By 9, the house was packed. The music was loud, the air hot, everyone laughing and drinking. I was in the kitchen, trying to squeeze past a cluster of my wife's cousins to get more ice, when I first saw him. He was in the hallway that leads to the downstairs bathroom and the basement door. He wasn't holding a drink. He wasn't on his phone. He just leaned against the wall in a dark gray hoodie, hands in the pockets, watching. He didn't look scary. He looked disconnected. Bored almost. Like he was at the wrong party but refused to leave. I paused with the ice bag in my hands. I didn't recognize him. I scanned the room, trying to connect him to someone. He looked about 30, average height, pale, with deep dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. I walked over, host mode on. "Hey man, enjoying the party, can I get you a drink?" I asked. He didn't look at me right away. His eyes stayed on the living room on the couch where my wife, Anukika, was laughing with a group of friends. Eventually, he turned his gaze to me. His eyes were flat and lifeless. "No, I'm good," he said. "I'm William," I said, holding out my hand. "I don't think we've met. Who are you here with?" He stared at my hand but didn't shake it. "I'm with Joel," he murmured. I frowned. Joel from work," he mumbled. "That was a problem. I worked at a small graphic design firm. There was no Joel there. Anna worked at a bakery with 3 other women. No Joel there either." My smile fell away. The host in me shut off, replaced by something more cautious. "Look, buddy, I don't know a Joel and this is a private party," I said. "If you weren't invited, you need to leave." Right then, the music seemed to dip. A few nearby conversations stuttered and stopped. People started glancing over. He didn't get angry. He didn't argue. He just looked at me, then let his eyes drift back to my wife on the couch one last time. A small, unsettling smile tugged at one corner of his mouth. "Okay," he said softly. "Nice house, William." He turned and walked toward the front door. I followed, making sure he actually left. He stepped out into the cold, walked down our driveway, and disappeared into the dark without looking back. I locked the door and double-checked the deadbolt. "Who was that?" my brother asked, coming up behind me with a soda. "Some crasher," I said, shaking my head. "Said he knew Joel." "Weirdo," we laughed it off. Within 20 minutes, we weren't even thinking about him. The party went until about 1 a.m. when the last guest left. Anna and I were exhausted. We did a quick surface clean, paper plates, empty cans, but left the heavy lifting for the morning. We checked the front door, turned off the lights, and crashed. I'm pretty sure we were both asleep before our heads hit the pillows. The 26th is always the worst day of the year. The fun is over, and you're left with a destroyed house and a pounding headache. I woke around 10 a.m. to the smell of coffee. Anukika was already downstairs. We started the long, miserable job of deep cleaning. We had bags for trash, boxes for recycling, a bucket of soapy water. By noon, the living room was mostly clear. The Christmas tree stood alone in the corner, stripped of presents, looking strangely bare. "William, did you leave a gift back here?" Anna called. She was kneeling behind the tree, reaching into the tight corner where the wall meets the fireplace. "No," I said, folding a tablecloth. "We opened everything. There's a box back here," she said. It was tucked behind the tree skirt. She dragged it out. It wasn't wrapped. It was a plain brown cardboard box about shoebox sized, sealed with heavy duct tape. No bow, no tag, no markings. Something in my gut tightened. I walked over. "Don't open that." "Why? Maybe someone forgot it," she said, already picking at the tape. "Anna, wait, too late." She popped the flaps. The smell hit me first, stale cigarettes and damp dirt. Anna looked inside and went absolutely white. All the color drained from her face. She didn't scream. She just froze, her hands shaking over the open box. "What is it?" I asked, kneeling beside her. I looked inside. It was filled with photographs. I picked one up, heart hammering. A standard 4x6 print. It was our bedroom. The shot was taken from low to the floor, angled up at the bed. In the photo, Anna was asleep, mouth slightly open, one hand on the pillow. I was next to her, back to the camera, a lump under the blanket. I grabbed another. A close-up of Anna's sleeping face. Another. This one was from inside our walk-in closet. In the foreground, the blurry outline of my hanging shirts framed the view of the bed where we both lay asleep. I flipped it over. On the back, in jagged handwriting, was a time. 3:42 a.m. I felt sick. The party had ended at 1 a.m. We'd kicked that man out around 8 p.m. These photos were taken hours later, while we were dead asleep. He'd been in the room with us. I dug to the bottom of the box and found a folded sheet of lined notebook paper. The handwriting dug deep into the page. "You checked the front door. You didn't check the basement window. Always check your house before sleeping." I dropped the note and scrambled backward like the box might explode. "Get out," I shouted. "Anna, get out of the house, now." We ran, no coats, no shoes. We bolted to the car, jumped in, locked the doors, and called 911 from the freezing driveway. The police arrived fast. I gave them a full description of the man from the party. The gray hoodie, pale skin, dead eyes. I told them about Joel. I handed over the box. They swept the house with guns drawn, room by room, for nearly 2 hours. We sat in the car and watched. When the lead officer finally came back out, his face was grim. "We cleared the house," he said. "No one's inside now." "Did you find him?" I asked. "No," he said, "but we found how he got in." He led me around the side of the house to the basement window well. The plastic cover had been lifted off. The little window I always assumed was painted shut had been pried open. Muddy boot prints marked the basement floor. "He waited," the officer said. "From the mud, he probably stayed down there in the utility room until the party was over and you went to bed." He hesitated. "There's something else you should see." He took me back inside and up to our bedroom, then pointed his flashlight toward the walk-in closet. On the top shelf, pushed way back behind a stack of sweaters I never wore, was a sleeping bag. It was unrolled. Next to it was an empty water bottle and a protein bar wrapper. "He didn't just come in to take photos," the officer said quietly. "It looks like he may have been up here for a while, maybe even during the party." My knees almost gave out. I remembered standing in the hallway the night before, asking him to leave. He'd walked out through the front door, sure, but he must have looped around the house right away, forced the basement window, and crept back inside while we were still cleaning up downstairs. He'd been in the house with us the whole time. The police took the box, photos, and note as evidence. They tried to lift prints, but with 40 people handling everything at the party, there was no way to isolate his. In the photos, he was wearing gloves. We stayed in a hotel that night. Neither of us was willing to sleep there. The next morning, the police called. They'd circulated his description, but without a name, license plate, or clear prints, there wasn't much they could do. They promised more patrols in our area. We went back in daylight to pack bags. We were going to stay with my parents. The house felt wrong, violated. Every shadow looked like someone standing just out of view. Every floorboard creak sounded like footsteps. While I loaded the car, Anna screamed from the living room. I ran inside. She was pointing at the TV. Our smart TV uses our personal photos as a screensaver, pulling them from a shared cloud album. On the 65-inch screen, a photo was displayed. It was a selfie. The man from the party. Gray hoodie, pale skin, dark circles. This time he was smiling, wide, yellow, crooked teeth. And he wasn't at the party. He was in the back seat of our car. The timestamp on the cloud upload showed it had been taken 2 days before Christmas. In the frame, Anna and I were in the front seats, driving. You could see the backs of our heads. He'd been lying in the cargo area, lifting his head just enough to take a selfie with us while we drove down the highway. He hadn't just crashed a party. He'd been stalking us, close to us, for days, maybe weeks. We didn't just leave. We abandoned the house. We moved in with my parents and put the place on the market the next week. We sold for way under value just to get rid of it. We moved 3 states away. I changed jobs. Anna changed hers. We bought a condo on the 10th floor of a building with 24/7 security and cameras in every hallway. I still don't sleep well, because the police never found him, and they never found a Joel. The day after Christmas has always been slow in my family. Leftovers, old sweatpants, and lots of doing nothing. That year was no different. Maybe that's what made it so much worse. Christmas Day had been chaos, family everywhere. Kids tearing through wrapping paper, food out all day, laughter echoing through the rooms. By the time we went to bed, we were beyond exhausted. The next morning, December 26th, I woke up late. Sunlight leaked around the curtains. My phone said 11:30 a.m. Right away, I knew the whole house was in lazy mode. Somebody's usually up early, but not that day. I could hear the TV murmuring in the living room, a Christmas movie playing low. I lay in bed scrolling on my phone, feeling heavy, like my body was reluctant to move. Eventually, I dragged myself out. My dad was half asleep on the couch, still wearing yesterday's sweater. My mom stood in the kitchen, not really cooking, just sipping tea and staring into space. My younger brother lay on the floor wrapped in a blanket, watching the TV upside down. Nobody was really awake. Nobody was paying attention. That matters. Our house is medium-sized, 2 floors, living room and kitchen downstairs, bedrooms upstairs. At the back is a small storage room near the back door where we keep tools and old boxes. Normally my dad's meticulous, doors locked, alarm on, lights set. But after Christmas, everything was relaxed. The alarm had been off because people came and went all Christmas Day. The back door had opened so many times nobody could remember if it was ever properly locked again. Around noon, my mom suggested we all just relax and graze on leftovers later. No one objected. Phones, TV, dim lighting, curtains half drawn. The whole house felt groggy. At some point, I noticed how quiet it was outside. No kids playing, no cars, no snowblowers. Not unusual for December 26th, but it felt like the street had been paused. I got up to grab some water. On my way down the back hall, I noticed something small but wrong. The door to the storage room was slightly open. That door is always closed. It sticks, so you have to shove it. You always hear it. I didn't remember anyone going in there. "Did you go in the storage room?" I called to my brother. He shook his head, eyes still glued to the TV. "Mom." "No," she said absently, not looking up. I pushed the door shut and went back to the living room, telling myself it was nothing. About 20 minutes later, my dad said he was going to take a nap upstairs. My mom followed soon after. That left me and my brother downstairs. He dozed off on the floor. I stayed on my phone, headphones in. I don't know how much time passed, maybe half an hour. Then I heard a noise. It wasn't loud or sudden, more like something brushing or sliding. At first I assumed it was the TV. I pulled one earbud out. The sound came again. It was subtle but distinct, the slow rasp of a drawer opening. I muted the TV. The sound was coming from the back of the house. My heart started beating faster, even while I told myself I was being paranoid. I stood up quietly, leaving my brother sleeping on the rug, and walked toward the hallway. The storage room door was open again, wider this time. A faint smell hung there, cold air, dust, and sweat. It wasn't strong, but it was wrong. I froze. Then I heard breathing. Not heavy panting, controlled, deliberate breaths. Someone was inside our house. I backed away, each step feeling too loud. I wanted to yell, to run, but fear made my legs shaky. My phone was in my hand. I thought about calling 911 but didn't want my voice to echo through the hallway. Footsteps. Quiet, right behind the storage room door. The door shifted. I stopped thinking and ran. I bolted up the stairs, almost slipping, and crashed into my parents' bedroom, shouting that someone was in the house. My dad snapped awake instantly. The laziness vanished from his face. My mom grabbed her phone. Downstairs, my brother woke up crying, confused by the yelling. Dad grabbed the baseball bat he keeps by the bed and ordered us to lock ourselves in the room. Then he went down alone. Seconds felt like hours. I could hear my own pulse pounding in my ears. My mom whispered prayers under her breath. My brother shook beside her. Then we heard shouting. My dad's voice. Another man's voice. Then a second male voice. Then a heavy thud, something slamming. Dad came tearing back up the stairs, breathing hard. He locked the bedroom door and leaned against it. "There's more than one," he said. That sentence chilled me more than anything else. Downstairs, footsteps pounded. Fast now, no more effort to be quiet. Drawers yanked open, cabinets banging. The TV clicked off. The front door rattled. They weren't sneaking anymore. They were ransacking. My mom was on the phone with the police, whispering details, trying not to make noise. Then suddenly, silence. No voices, no steps, just the hum of the house. The silence lasted a minute, maybe two. Glass shattered, somewhere near the front of the house. They were gone. The police arrived and did a full sweep. 3 men had come in through the back door. The lock had been damaged, probably sometime during the chaos of Christmas when nobody noticed. They'd hidden in the storage room, waiting for us to relax, for people to drift off to different rooms. They grabbed cash, jewelry, phones, a laptop. They went straight to all the right places. One wore gloves. Another left muddy prints near the stairs. The officer said this kind of thing happens more than people realize, especially right after Christmas. Houses full of expensive gifts, tired families, relaxed security, unlocked doors, lazy days. None of us slept that night, because sometimes the real danger isn't that you're careless, it's that you feel safe. December 26th is an oddly depressing day. Months of buildup for Christmas, stress, shopping, anticipation, and then it's just gone. You're left with a wrecked house, piles of trash, and a bone-deep exhaustion. I live in a quiet subdivision in the Chicago suburbs, about 45 minutes from downtown. It's a nice neighborhood, safe, the kind of place where people leave their garage doors open in summer. I'm a single mom to a 3-year-old boy named Donald. Because it's just the two of us, I tend to go overboard every Christmas so he never feels like he's missing anything. That year, we'd hosted a small Christmas Eve get-together for my parents and my sister. By the morning of the 26th, the house looked like a bomb had gone off. Outside, the weather was miserable. A heavy snowstorm overnight had dumped about 6 inches of wet snow on the driveway. The wind howled against the siding, rattling the windows. I woke around 8 a.m. Donald was already in the living room, happily pushing a new toy truck across the carpet. I made coffee and started the dreaded post-holiday cleanup. Wrapping paper was everywhere. Around 9:30, I was upstairs in the hallway with a laundry basket when I heard a distinct thump above me. My house is a basic 2-story colonial. Above the second floor is an unfinished attic, just joists, insulation, and cardboard boxes of old baby clothes and holiday decorations. You get up there through a pull-down hatch in the hallway ceiling. The noise sounded like something heavy shifting or a box tipping over. I froze, staring up at the hatch. The wind was gusting hard outside, slamming against the house. I told myself it was just the structure creaking or a draft knocking something over. Old houses make noises in Chicago winters. I forced myself to shrug it off and went downstairs with the laundry. An hour later, I was in the kitchen pulling out leftovers. I opened the fridge to grab the ham platter from the middle shelf. I clearly remembered wrapping it tightly in foil. The foil was torn open, not peeled, ripped. A big chunk of ham was missing. I stared at it, trying to remember if I'd gotten up in the night for a snack. I'd had a couple of sodas, but I didn't remember stumbling down for meat. Donald couldn't reach that shelf, and no one else had a key. I chalked it up to mom brain and shut the fridge, but a tiny knot of unease formed in my stomach. It really started around noon. I was vacuuming the living room rug. I switched the vacuum off to move a chair. In the sudden quiet, I heard creaking, not the wind. Slow, steady floorboard creaks, and they were coming from directly above the living room. The layout of my house is simple. The master bedroom sits over the living room. I knew for a fact the bedroom was empty because Donald was in front of me on the carpet, and I was the only other person home. "Did you hear that, Donald?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't look up from his truck. "The man is walking," he said matter-of-factly. I slid down my spine. I turned off the vacuum entirely. "What did you say, buddy?" He looked up with big, innocent eyes and pointed at the ceiling vent. "The man upstairs. He's walking heavily." I tried to laugh. "Is it Santa? Did Santa come back?" Donald shook his head hard. "Number Santa went bye-bye. This is the dirty man." That phrase, the dirty man, sent a shock through me. Little kids say weird things. They pick up words from who knows where. But the way he said it was so casual, like he was describing something obvious. "Where did you see a dirty man, Donald?" I asked, kneeling beside him. "In the vent," he said. "He has eyes." I looked at the air return vent near the ceiling. Just a dark metal grate. You couldn't see anything behind it. An overwhelming urge to leave the house washed over me, but I pushed it down and tried to be rational. It was broad daylight, doors locked, alarm system installed. "Okay," I said, my voice shaking a little. "I'm going to go check, all right? You stay here." I grabbed my phone. I didn't dial 911 yet. I didn't want to be the lunatic calling the police about a dirty man in the vents, but I kept the phone in my hand. Upstairs, the house felt too quiet. The wind had eased up, which made it worse. I couldn't blame any noise on the storm anymore. At the top of the stairs, I looked at the attic hatch, a plain white panel with a little string dangling down. I stood under it and listened. Nothing. For a full minute, nothing. I started to feel stupid. I almost turned to go back downstairs when something wet hit the floor next to my sock. A single drop. I looked down. A grayish droplet of water sat on the hardwood. I tilted my head back. Another drop formed at the seam of the hatch and fell. The snow on the roof must be melting, I thought. Maybe ice was clogging something. Water damage is no joke. I needed to see how bad the leak was. I reached up and pulled the string. The hatch swung down and the folding stairs creaked out. As the stairs lowered, a smell rolled over me. Not mold, not old wood. Body odor, thick, sour, humid. Like a packed subway car in August, but hotter and more concentrated. Then from the darkness at the top of the stairs came a sound I will never forget. A zipper, being pulled slowly closed. I didn't think. I didn't scream. I shoved the stairs back up as hard as I could. They banged against the hatch, not fully latching. Then I ran. I sprinted down the hallway, nearly slipping, and flew down the stairs. "Donald!" I screamed. He looked up at me, startled, as I grabbed his arm and yanked him off the floor. He started crying, more from my sudden aggression than pain. "We're leaving," I said. "Right now." I didn't take coats. I didn't grab my purse. I had my phone and my kid, and that was enough. I unlocked the front door, flung it open, and ran out into the snow in my socks. I shoved Donald into his car seat, jumped into the driver's seat, and silently thanked myself for leaving the keys in the ignition earlier when I moved the car for the plow guy. I reversed out so fast I nearly took out the mailbox. 3 houses down, I pulled over, shaking so hard I could barely hit the right numbers. I called 911. "There's someone in my house," I told the dispatcher. "My son said there was a man. I heard him in the attic. It smells like a person. Please send someone." 2 cruisers arrived within 5 minutes. I gave them the garage code and explained about the attic hatch, the noises, the smell. Donald and I stayed in the car with the heater blasting. My house looked completely normal, Christmas lights on the gutters, wreath on the door. Safe, cozy. 10 minutes later, the front door opened. 2 officers stepped out, leading a man in handcuffs. He looked like a walking nightmare. He wore layers of filthy clothing, including a flannel shirt that used to belong to my ex-husband, one I'd packed in a box in the attic years before. His hair was matted. His beard was full of debris. He had no shoes, just filthy wool socks. He didn't fight. He just stared at the ground, shivering. An officer came to my car window. He looked unsettled. "Ma'am, he's in custody," he said. "We'll need you to come down later and give a statement, but you might not want to go back inside just yet." "How long?" I asked. "How long was he up there?" "It's hard to say," he replied. "But based on what we found, at least a couple of days." Later, detectives filled in the rest. He was a drifter, known to local cops for trespassing and petty theft. He'd probably slipped in a few days earlier, maybe when I'd been bringing groceries in with the garage door open. He'd found the attic hatch and pulled himself up. He'd made himself a nest in the corner of the attic above my bedroom, piling insulation like a mattress. Around it were wrappers from our pantry, granola bars, crackers, Christmas cookies. He'd been coming down at night to raid the kitchen while we slept. But the worst part was the vent. In the attic, he'd unscrewed the back of the air return vent that looks down the hallway and angles into my bedroom. Beside it, they found a little pile of scraps, turkey bones, ham fat, half-eaten rolls. He'd been up there on Christmas Eve while my family gathered downstairs, laughing, unwrapping gifts, singing along to carols, lying on his stomach in the insulation, eating our leftovers and watching us through the grate.